Hey guys, welcome back. Joe Brunsman, Insurance Broker of the Stars. I see a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings on this whole idea about being an MSP and fighting insurance claims. So I want to make this video to really kind of educate you and maybe elucidate some additional points for you to think about as it pertains to this particular topic, because that's going to have implications on all kinds of other things in your business and a bunch of videos I've already talked about before. Now, if you've been following me for a while, this will probably sound somewhat familiar. Hey, the insured shall not accept at personal cost, so you're effectively voiding your insurance policy if you do the following. You make any offer or payment, you admit any liability, or you settle without any insurer consent. So if you want to learn more about that topic, that's the video where you can find that on my channel. Now, what's the opposite to this? There's the insurance company saying like, hey, you can't do these things. Why are they saying that? It's because later in the policy, the insurance company is going to say, it's our right and duty to do those things. And you'll see here, duty and right to defend. That's where that policy term comes from. Not all policies say that, so please be careful. But for the sake of argument, if you have a policy, it likely says that. And of course, even if the claim is groundless, false, or fraudulent, subject to all the policy provisions. Now, there's a little bit more to it. It's not as cut and dry as you get a claim, insurance company runs with it, and you have nothing to do with it. You're kind of at their whim. There's more to the story. And that's where this thing comes in called a hammer clause. Now, I'm just providing examples here. Obviously, you should read your own policy, but here's an example for you. The company has the right, this is the insurance company, to investigate, adjust, defend, appeal, negotiate, and with the consent of you, compromise or settle any claim, whether within or above the deductible. So, quick tangent here, just because a claim's within your deductible, it doesn't necessarily mean you don't have to report it. So that's kind of like a little nugget of wisdom to take back for you. Next, what happens if you refuse? Here we go. If the named insured refuses to consent to a compromise or settlement recommended by the insurance company's obligations shall be limited to the amount of the covered loss in excess of the deductible, which the company would have paid in the settlement. So that makes sense. They're saying like, hey, we're going to cut it off here. This amount, we recommended this. You're deciding not to do that. Plus kind of some other stuff. And then from that, plus 80% of covered claims, expenses, and losses. So that's attorney's fees, expert witness testimony, damages awarded to the plaintiff, like whatever the settlement would be, in excess of the first settlement or compromise amount recommended by the company. So why are they doing this? Why do they even offer this kind of secondary option? Well, there's some very good reasons for that. If we're bringing it all together, what do insurance companies want to do? The insurers, they want to limit their monetary exposure to claims. And that makes sense. If they're like, hey, they reach a point where there's a settlement on the table, the other guys are like, hey, we're good with that. Then they bring it to you and they're like, hey, the plaintiff is good with this settlement. Sign here. We'll all go home. We'll go eat a burger. Well, obviously that's cheaper for them to do that. They also want to limit their exposure to something called a bad faith claim. Now, there's many different types of bad faith claims, but for our discussion here, it would be generally failure to settle within policy limits. So insurance companies don't just want to blow through your entire insurance policy, because then there could be a bunch of uncovered damages awarded to the plaintiff, which means then you could turn around and sue the insurance company for that, right? Or subrogation rights, all kinds of things in there. But suffice to say, they don't want to blow through your whole insurance policy. They could be facing a lot of legal exposure for doing that. Now, what does your company want to do, or what may you want to do, I should say more aptly? You may want to prove your innocence and just fight that unjust claim. Now, as a fellow business owner, I get it. Many times we spend more time with our company and working on our company than we actually do with our own families. So yeah, we picked this path. We're the ones that started the company. We're taking all the risk. But it's like, hey, this company is my baby, right? Like this is my life's work kind of in a little bowl here. I don't want just some random guy being the bull in the china shop and destroying my reputation that I've worked so hard to actually achieve. Now, with that, you're like, hey, maybe I want to stay in court. I'm going to fight these guys to the bitter end. I'm going to prove my innocence. Well, the first thing you're going to want to know is Just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your problem. And you also have to understand, just kind of generally speaking here, that what you do is so technical that if you try to explain that to, let's say, a judge, that judge is a liberal arts major. And believe it or not, that judge may not even use a computer during his daily work. So you can't just think he's going to understand what you're talking about. Next, you got to think about who's going to be on that jury. Generally, people who weren't able to get out of jury duty. Do you think they're going to understand the nuances of a subnet mask, or they're going to understand what a cybersecurity framework is, or they're going to just, sit there and rapt attention as you talk about the master services agreement? Probably not. So make sure you're going to keep that in mind. So even if you think you want to fight this claim, you probably won't actually want to do that in practice. And why is that? The stress, the anxiety, the time it takes to fight an insurance claim, it's way more than you think. Now, if it's like a very fundamental, absolutely baseless claim that just kind of came out of left field, can you fight that? Sure. But if that plaintiff has an attorney who knows what he's doing, he can run you through the mud for a very long time. I hate to say it, but part of the lawfare aspect is making your life so painful that you're just going to request a settlement just to get the hell out of there and go back on with your life. And when you think about, when business owners tell me they're going to sue people or they're going to go to court and they're going to fight something, what I really tell them is, generally speaking, it's kind of just a huge waste of your time. Right? Insurance policies exist for a reason. All the time and energy and all that emotion that you could pour into a court case, use that on your current clients that enjoy what you're doing, that appreciate the services you offer. Use that on your family. Use that to make your business better. Proving a point, I understand why you want to do it, but generally it's just not a good idea. So of all the claims that I've reported after doing this for well over 6 years now, I have had one that actually went to court. My semi-retired business partner, after 30 years of reporting claims, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of claims, approximately 5 of those, it's something like 4 or 5, have ever actually gone to court. Now, how many times have we even heard of a hammer clause being triggered where that company is like, by God, I'm going to sit in here and I'm going to prove my innocence? We've never had a client do that. We've heard of that being triggered twice. I called all the insurance companies we work with on a regular basis, and I was like, how many times have you actually seen the hammer clause triggered? And all the answer I got, one from one company, one from another company. And those claims guys have been working there for quite some time. They're like, people generally just want to get the hell out of there. They accept that settlement, they run for the door, and then they put all that energy elsewhere. So what does all of this really mean? Like, what do I want you to kind of take away from all of this? Well, foremost, contracts are what? They're obviously very important. Please make sure you have an attorney who is competent in this particular area, that specializes in your area, review and write those contracts for you. They're crucial to limiting losses. That is not the same as preventing losses. Now, if you want to learn a little bit more about that particular topic, look at limitation of liability contracts. I go into that a little more depth there, but suffice to say, contracts are not bulletproof. Even that limitation of liability clause, I'm not a litigation attorney, but my general understanding here is they'll just claim gross negligence and try and blow through that limitation of liability clause anyways. So make sure you keep that in mind. What's the job of an attorney? Generally to maximize the outcome of their client. You're going to see that on both sides. So don't just think because you have a contract that that's necessarily going to prevent the loss. Generally, that's to limit losses. You can't just prevent all losses contractually. Courts typically don't look favorably upon that. So practically, what am I getting at here? Once that insurer pays money, you have already lost to one degree or another. So this is why I'm so particular about focusing on those preemptive victories. And what do I mean by that? This particular video right here, Get Smart, Defense in Depth for your MSP. You want to make it so that the other attorney, the plaintiff's attorney, looks at this mountain of data that's being pushed towards them where you said, I offered to help this guy multiple times over however many years. I told him that this was a risk and I offered to assist him with that risk. Some additional controls that would have mitigated that exact risk that we're talking about right here. A bunch of other stuff inside of that video, but you need to get offensive about being defensive, if that makes sense to you. Now, if you're interested and you want to learn a little bit more about this whole balance between an insurance company's obligation to defend you and to pay claims and to make sure you're not just getting railroaded versus, your particular rights in that case, here's some additional court cases that I looked up just as I was kind of going through some research for this particular video here. Those are some good ones, pretty well known, somewhat foundational, I will say, for this particular area. Now, I'll just leave you with this. You could wrap all this up into one big sentence. This is Sun Tzu right here. The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Now, obviously, you have to, really kind of put in the work on the front end to prevent the battle to begin with. So, all of that being said, this is my latest book, Damage Control, Cyber Insurance Compliance. I'm actually writing a new book on insurance for MSPs. I will put that out for free whenever I get done with that. Depends on how much coffee I drink. All right, if you found that useful and you learned something today, please like, share, comment, subscribe, send it out to all of your buddies, so forth and so on, the general spiel on YouTube. All right, right above me, there's going to be another video for you over there. You can click on my beautiful face and subscribe to the channel. And with that, please don't think you're going to win a court case. Stay safe.